welcome everybody. Good morning. Usually it's afternoon, but good morning to Carlsbad. I am Brian DeVore, and welcome to Real Talk Carlsbad. Brian DeVore with the DeVore Realty Group, 760-908-3838, online at www.devorerealtygroup.com. We are live, so please, if you are on and you have any questions for my guests or for myself, then please post them. We are, as always, brought to you by First American Title and 5-Star Escrow. I'm really excited about today's show because we have some friends that are going to be on the show talking about a variety of different topics. And so I'm excited to get into that. Today is the first day of the races, so I've kind of warned my guests already that the trip back home may be a little bit challenging. I may take a different route than I normally do, but it should be kind of fun to at least watch what's going on in the races safely from the comfort of my own home later on. So I want to get right into it because we have a lot of stuff to cover. Let's meet our guests. To my left is Rod Hatley, and Rod is an estate planning attorney. Rod, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And Rod's going to talk about some of the pitfalls that people have as far as misconceptions about estate planning, and we kind of put together a little case study.
Sure.
You don't know yet what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So
lay it on me.
Hopefully I produce some good stuff that'll give you some juicy things to talk about.
Happy to.
So we're excited about that. And then we have, to his left, we have Craig McLean, and we have Attila Toda, and they're both with, not the rock group, but the organization called Boys to Men, and kind of a place in my heart for Boys to Men because I volunteer with them. So we're going to talk a lot about Boys to Men, the organization, the history, what they do, why they do what they do, and how they do what they do. So I'm really excited about that. As I mentioned, real quickly, we'll talk about the races are starting today. Do you guys go to the races at all? Do you like going to the races?
No, I avoid that like the plague.
Yeah, smart man. Craig?
I went to the fair this year, though, with my granddaughter.
Oh, did you?
And won her a big plush doll. So
and it cost you probably like $87
But
probably.
it was a bucket list thing.
Yeah?
Know, your granddaughter a big doll.
It is a bucket list thing for sure. Well,
it was awesome.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I quit going to the races. I thought I'd donate my money to meaningful causes.
Yeah, right. And that's not one of them, right?
That's not one of them.
Right, yeah. I used to go to the races, and my son, who is now 17 and a half, my older boy, a long time ago when we went, he picked a horse. Not, of course, he didn't bet on it.
Right.
But he picked a horse So Red because that's his favorite color. Long shot, and it came in.
Oh,
So now anytime I go, I'm like, okay, Justin, you're coming with me. So I'm not a huge fan of the races, but again, avoid the 5 if you can today, everybody out there.
Actually, we can't win either way. If you head north on the 5,
Right.
you're going to hit the racetrack traffic, and if you head south on the 5, Comic-Con.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, that starts tomorrow.
So you really can't win for losing. I mean, either way you go.
We're in trouble. Stay home, Carlsbad.
We'll stay here all afternoon.
And I like that. We have air conditioning. We'll stay here. Claire said that the schedule is cleared today. So great. We're going to be we'll be here for a few hours then. Let's talk quickly about what's happening in the real estate market in Carlsbad, and then we'll jump into our guests. So, overview for San Diego County, and this is from the Homedex report, which I like to talk about each time. Throughout the entire county, all the arrows were up last month for median sales price, and all the arrows were down for closed sales. We've been talking. It's the same thing for the last 7 months, I think. Specifically in the 4 zip codes of Carlsbad, arrow was up for median sales price across the board for every zip code. Leading the way was 92010, 17.4% median price increase over the year before. And then closed sales, except for 1 zip code, they were all down. Again, as trend continues, except the only one was 92009. Sales were up a little bit, 1.1%. But the indicator that I'm watching the most right now is market time, and the days on market was up for a couple of the zip codes by 5-6%. So we're starting to see homes stay on the market longer. We are starting to see inventory increase a little bit. We're getting towards the end of the traditionally busy summer season, so we'll have to watch the market and see what happens. If you have any questions about the real estate market, of course, feel free to give me a call. Again, 760-908-3838. You can send me an email, Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at DeVoreRealtyGroup.com. And now I'm excited to get into the meat of what we're going to be talking about. So, Rod,
Yes, sir.
You are an estate planning attorney. If you could describe just briefly what an estate planning attorney does, and you have a little personal story of why you got into it.
Okay, thanks for asking. Basically, what I do is I tell my clients that the purpose of my law practice is to protect. I tell each client that I will help you protect everyone you love and everything that you own, and my law firm has the resources to do precisely that. Quick story. Former Navy JAG, so if you ever saw the movie A Few Good Men, that's what I used to do years ago. While I was on active duty, my father passed away, and Dad had a simple will, and Dad also had leukemia, so he was having a challenge doing more and better planning in addition to just a simple will. So long story short, he passed away in June of '92. I took emergency leave. I went back home to my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, and we opened up a probate, and it took us 7 years to get through probate.
7 years.
7 years. So I decided in the midst of that experience, there has to have been a better, smarter way to have done this. So when I came off of active duty, I got a master's degree in tax law from the University of San Diego here in San Diego, and then shifted into estate planning because I figured there was a way to take that experience and use it to help other people avoid what my sister and I had to go through for a prolonged period.
That's wonderful. You hear a lot of times people go into what they want to do because of a personal experience, and that's exactly what you did. And so you've done a really good job of helping people avoid what you've had to do. And so let's talk about some of the misconceptions. You and I talked yesterday. Some of the misconceptions that people have about estate planning attorneys, and let's do a case study, and we'll kind of talk about where this person went wrong.
Okay.
Sure. So I made this. I created this story, and I hope that it works for you here.
Sure.
John is a 65-year-old man living in where else? Carlsbad.
Of course.
He is in good health because his wife is always on him about having his physicals and eating right.
Excellent.
John is a man of modest means.
Okay.
So he thinks he doesn't need a trust. He just has a simple will. Okay. And he completed that will online.
Okay. Okay.
Kind of add that in there. He didn't see the need for a trust. Tragically, John is involved in a car accident. And now I kind of put two scenarios here, and feel free to answer both or one.
Okay.
One, John is permanently disabled, or John is tragically killed.
Okay.
What are the ramifications of John's decision not to have a trust?
Okay. Well, I'm going to assume as part of our conversation, or your example, is that John and his wife own their home. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. It would have been better for him to have had a trust into which he would have put his family residence. But let's take each of the two scenarios that you're posing. If he's permanently disabled, is he mentally competent at this point or not?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Or no. I'll let you answer.
Okay, if he's not mentally competent.
I don't really know John personally, so.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's assume that he's not mentally competent.
Okay.
At some point, his wife is going to need his signature, and the way she's going to get that, and we don't know from your information, not clear to me whether there was a power of attorney, but let's say that there was. There's nothing in the law that says that a third party, like a bank or a brokerage house, has to accept a general power of attorney. So what she will have to do at some point, she'll need his signature. So the default is she'll have to take him and put him in front of the probate court judge downtown and say, Your Honor, this is my husband. He's incompetent now to manage his affairs. Please appoint me, his wife, to be his conservator, which is basically a guardian for a grown person. So now she has to report to the court every 2 years how he's doing, how she's spending his half of the money, etc. And we sometimes call that a living probate because though he's alive, though he's not well, he's subject to the probate court's continuing jurisdiction, and that takes time, costs money, and is a matter of public record, and that can all be avoided by having John set up the living trust with his wife. And so now if there was a mental disability, life continues on as he would want. His wife is now the successor trustee. She takes care of John. She doesn't have to involve the probate court, and at the end of the day, there's privacy. They don't have to spend additional attorney's fees to go to probate court for the conservatorship, etc. And there's no requirement to have to report to the court every 2 years how he's doing and how she's spending his half of the money. On the flip side of that, let's say that he has passed away, all right? Wills go through probate. So I assume they probably own their home as joint tenants with the right of survivorship. Sometimes they might own it as community property with the right of survivorship, but let's assume it's a joint tenancy. There's no probate as to the home because she's the surviving joint tenant, so she's going to get it. But she will probably at some point want to get his name off of the title, and I don't know if they're children, adult children. I don't recommend that she take title with the joint children because that's a whole other scenario that we have to be concerned about. But there won't be any probate when he passes away because it's a joint property. It'll go to her. But there might be other accounts that he has in his individual name that maybe he would have done well to have put into a trust that now, could be probated. What triggers a probate in California is $150,000 of fair market value or more. So let's say that he had a brokerage account or, I don't know, maybe a property in his name, and it's worth at least $150,000. That's going through probate.
Which in Carlsbad is going to be more than $150,000. In most of San Diego, a home is going to be worth more than that.
Or maybe it was a rental property or a foreclosure property that he got wind of, and and of course when he closed on it, maybe escrow screwed up and they put it in his name alone, not him and his wife as joint tenants with the right of survivorship. So now that's a probate, and that's an unintended consequence, but that's the practical result of not having done the proper advanced planning. So the idea is, a will is fine, but it guarantees probate. I mean, if our listeners take nothing away from our conversation today, just know that wills equal probate. And the other issue is that wills only take effect when you die. They don't provide any, any assistance to you if you become mentally incapacitated. So having a trust and having it funded with your assets, that is to say that the assets are transferred into the trust, that makes it so much easier to manage and to administer, so that if there is a disability or when death comes, it's a lot easier to manage those assets and stay out of probate court.
So let's talk about a few of the common misconceptions from this story that sort of led him to this problem.
Sure.
Number one, he's in good health, so he thinks he's fine.
Sure.
He has a will, but he doesn't need a trust. He's of modest means, and you and I talked yesterday.
Yeah.
One of the biggest misconceptions is people think that they have to be worth all kinds of money to have a trust.
No, I mean, remember that the trust is going to accomplish two very valuable things for you. It will help you avoid conservatorship if there's a mental incapacity, and it will certainly avoid probate if assets are owned by the living trust. And it's unfortunate that this misconception persists out there that you have to be extremely wealthy to have a trust, and it's not true. I mean, many clients that I have are, people of modest means, but they have a home, they want to protect it from conservatorship and probate, so we talk about setting up a living trust and putting the assets into the trust, and it just makes it so much easier to deal with the prospect of an incapacity, or certainly when someone passes away. So having that plan in place makes a lot of sense. And I think you had also mentioned previously that he went online and he got the, now, there are a lot of great companies online. We won't mention any here, but the idea is, and I think we talked about it, if you know specifically the document you're looking for, that's fine. More power to you. The challenge is usually you don't know what you don't know about the law, okay? And so this is really a specialized area. I'd recommend have a conversation with an estate planning attorney. And as I tell clients that I meet with, prospective clients, I say, look, I want you to teach me about your family. I'll teach you about the law. And together we should be able to design a plan that will take care of you and meet your needs, whatever they might be. And even if we don't ultimately work together, if at the end of our conversation, when you leave the office, you're smarter about what a good estate plan should include, and now you're in the driver's seat and you're empowered, well, then I've done my job. And if you come back to me, that's great. And if you don't, that's fine. As long as you're smarter than when you leave the office than when you came in, then I'm satisfied.
And one of the things you just said was you're empowering people with knowledge.
Sure.
And one of the biggest issues that you and I talked about is people, they don't want to deal with that part of their life.
Of course.
They put their head in the sand because they assume that if they talk about that, that means death.
Yeah.
And really, this is about protecting the people you love.
Sure.
And the things you have.
Yeah.
And it's putting the control in your family's hands.
Absolutely.
Not in someone else's hands.
Exactly. Keep the government out of your life. And I was working a couple of years ago with a certified senior advisor, and she shared something with me that was really resonating. She said, talking about this stuff doesn't make it happen any sooner. So I know we're talking about disability and dying, and those are not great subjects to talk about. I'm reminded of the Woody Allen observation. It's not that I'm afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, let's have a conversation. Let's try to keep it fun and light, but also understand too that it's a very serious. We want to provide for you if you become incapacitated mentally. We also want to provide for your family when you pass away. and ensure the orderly distribution of your assets to the people you care about in a way that's protected for their later use and enjoyment.
Right. There was a statistic I heard that said that only 10% of people even talk with their spouses about what their plans are, what they want to have happen.
Wow.
And that's terrible because that leads to this situation.
Yeah, and you're putting the surviving spouse through a lot of hurdles that maybe she didn't have to go through, and it would have been a lot easier to have done this planning ahead of time. And I think it could be an ego thing, and a lot of guys, and let's face it, we think that we're bulletproof, and it's never going to happen to us, and of course it does. So it's just simply a matter, let's get out ahead of this, have the conversation, and pull the trigger. Remember, it's not just about you, it's also about your spouse, it's about your children, your grandchildren, and just setting this in place so that when something happens to you, we know we're all going to pass at some point. We don't know when, but we all will. So let's have a plan in place to deal with that eventuality.
Right. And to your point, I would think that, and I have a trust as well, that you will live better if you know that this is taken care of.
It's just peace of mind. It really is peace of mind, and you just know that no matter what happens, I've jumped out of perfectly good airplanes, and I've gone scuba diving, and I surf very badly. But I could be hit in the crosswalk just going to get some lunch during the at the office during the day. So it doesn't have to be anything exotic.
Right.
But tomorrow's promised to no one. So get out ahead of this. Have a plan in place. And it may not be the perfect plan, but it will be better than leaving it to the state of California, which has already written a plan for you. It's called probate.
Right. Right. Exactly. Any other recommendations or advice you'd like to give to the audience?
I hope that this is valuable information for our listeners and those who have tuned in. And let me encourage you, if you've got a plan in place, and it may have been some time since it was recently reviewed, please get it updated. And if you don't have a plan in place, I hope this will serve as the catalyst to do something. And you can either meet with me, or if you've got a local attorney in the Carlsbad area, by all means, please make an appointment and get smarter, and then know what your options are.
All right. Well, and I definitely recommend Rod. I've been impressed with your knowledge and experience. Please, if you would, share with the audience how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. You can call me at area code 858-792-3444, or you can just email me to Rod at Hatley, Hatley, lawgroup.com.
Great. And on your website, you have a lot of good information as well, so people can again, become educated, and that's the key. If they become educated, they'll know what the steps they need to take.
Sure.
But again, take the advice and work with a professional who knows what they're doing, because we are literally talking about life and death.
Yes, we are.
And we want to make sure that you're protected, in the long term.
Thank you very much.
Rod, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. My pleasure. So once again, Brian DeVore with DeVore Realty Group, and you're watching Real Talk Carlsbad Live, brought to you by 5 Star Escrow and First American Title. So two gentlemen to our left here are with an organization called Boys to Men. I'm going to let them talk about the origin of Boys to Men. I met Attila. It's been about a year or two, maybe even almost 2 years now, and we met through a mutual friend at a group that your wife belongs to. And I sat down with him for coffee, learned about Boys to Men, and I said, okay, sign me up. And so I'm going to let them talk about what they do, and maybe you'll want to sign up too. And there's opportunities with some of the schools that are opening. So I'm going to let them talk about it. So Craig and Attila, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so let's talk about Boys to Men. Craig, you're one of the founders of Boys to Men, and you're the executive director, correct? Great. And so what is, besides a musical group, which it's not, you wanted to...
Yeah, well, you asked for Boys to Men, you got 2 average white guys.
Exactly, right. So, so that I love that joke, and we decided we did rock, paper, scissors to see who was going to be able to say the joke. It was his. I let him take it anyway.
Thanks for setting me up.
Yeah, my pleasure. Craig, talk to us. What is Boys to Men?
Well, Boys to Men is a group mentoring program. We work with predominantly fatherless teenage boys, which, by the way, fatherless teenage boys have 20 times more likely to go to prison than a boy growing up without a dad. 20 times, 10 times more likely to do drugs, and 9 times more likely to drop out of school.
Not 20% more, 20 times
20
more.
times more.
Wow.
Yeah, the prisons are full of fatherless boys and men. So what we discovered this huge problem, and the other startling statistic is 33% of teenage boys today are growing up without dads.
Wow.
Well,
So 20 years ago, when we decided to do something about that, we didn't know that, but we started mentoring teenage boys, and we went into the schools, and we formed a group, not a singing group, but a talking group where we meet with them and talk about what's going on in our lives as men, and what the decisions we made as teenage boys and how they worked out. I made a lot of bad decisions that didn't work out that well. And if I could have gone back and made a different one, it would have changed my life. So we're able to kind of share with these boys through our experience the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. And then we ask them, we don't tell them what to do, we ask them, you know, what do you want to do? What kind of man do you want to be? You know, and how can we help you get there?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's just awesome. You know, as opposed to one-on-one mentoring, we're able to affect 20 boys at one school. You know, and usually these boys have the worst grades, the lowest attendance, the biggest discipline issues, and we don't tutor them, and we don't tell them to do anything, but by going in every week and giving them a chance to talk, and giving them a community that cares, we're able to change their academic trajectory, and they get better grades, and
Excellent.
They go to college instead of prison.
Right.
Wonderful.
So it's awesome. It's an awesome program.
There's other organizations that help youth, obviously. You have the YMCA, you have Boys and Girls Club. What's different as far as the philosophy between Boys to Men and those organizations?
Well, I think what sets us apart is we don't have an agenda other than helping them become better men. That's it. There's no religious overtones. We're not teaching them anything, and we're just there for them. And I think the group mentoring program is really what sets us apart too. Not telling them what to do. These boys will typically not go to another program like Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts is a great program, but the boys that we work with, they don't have parents that are going to take them to Boy Scouts or to YMCA.
Right.
Or to other programs. They don't have parents that will take them.
Right.
Their parents are missing for some reason. Don't care. It's pretty sad what's going on. But not all the boys in the program do that, but a lot of them do. So that's the ones we want to work with.
Right.
Let me add to that.
Yeah.
Just to say, in some of those programs, you can have youth camps for boys where they just get together for sports just to interact. And that's okay. But where we take them is to a much deeper level.
Absolutely.
What we're really there to do is to help them take a look at what's getting in the way of them being the man that they want to be or living the life that they want to live.
Sure.
What a lot of what attracted me to the program was understanding statistics like if we've got 2.2 million people incarcerated in America, 90% of those are men and 70% of those grew up without a dad. Or at least with a healthy male role model.
Right.
In a group mentoring environment, we're just able to work with more boys, but it's not just, and we tell them this, we're not here to replace your dad, but we can give you a room full of uncles, and we can create a tribe for you.
Yeah.
Because then they begin to support each other, because one of the key elements that I see happening when a group starts, when they start to feel the trust of the circle, and they start sharing with each other about what's going on with them, then they get this big realization that whatever they're going through, they're not the only one.
That's right.
That's huge.
Big deal, yeah. Because if you remember your teenage years, nobody else felt like you. Nobody else felt like me.
Of course.
And that's not true. We all feel the same.
Yeah. And every young boy, and I see this all the time, I see them isolate themselves because they think that they're the only one having that problem.
Right.
As soon as they get in a circle, a trusted circle where they know that nothing will be said outside of the circle.
Smart. Yeah.
Their teachers, nobody hears about what goes. Once they trust that, whatever's said here stays here.
Right.
And they get a chance to be able to communicate what's going on with them and hear what's going on with other boys. It releases the pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Once that, and I think Craig can attest to some years ago, he had a study done in the program where essentially the disciplinary the disciplinary issues dropped by 85% with
Wow.
these boys who had been in the program for a year.
That's outstanding.
And that's huge. And that's just a testament to the fact that these boys need to be heard and understood and to have an environment where they can do that. But a lot of the other organizations, I think they're great. They're wonderful
They are,
programs. But they all have their purpose.
Sure.
And our purpose is really to get to the root cause
Yeah.
of what's getting in the way of some of these boys and create that kind of a safe environment
Yeah.
for them to be able to get there.
Yeah.
And I think there's one story that kind of illustrates the problem and what we do, and that's the hammer and the nail, where I often hire boys, or they come up to me and ask me for a job, and I say, come over. If they call me 3 times, I say, come over and you can work for me on Saturday, and I'll pay you a little bit of money. So I had one kid come over, and he didn't have a dad. He was brilliant, though, real smart kid, and I said, go, here's a hammer. Go pull the nails out of that wood pile. I'll be back in 30 minutes. You should be done. I go back, and he's got no nails pulled out, and he's sweating, and he's angry. And I said, what's going on? Show me how you're pulling those nails out. And instead of using the hammer, using the leverage, he's pulling on the hammer and just trying to pull the nail out without.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went, oh my.
No
No one ever showed him how to use a hammer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and this is a good example. So now he's asked to do a job. He doesn't have the right tools, or he has the right tools, but he doesn't know how to use it. He can't do it. He's angry. He's got a hammer in his hand.
Sure.
That's a typical teenage boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so instead of building, which is a natural tendency of men, he's going to destroy because he's angry and
Wow.
wants vengeance. And that's a good example. So I
Yeah.
went over to him and I said, oh, man, look, watch this. And I took the hammer and bam, the nail came right out. And I said, now watch this. And I put another board under it, and I used additional leverage, and I did it with one finger. And he went, oh, man, I feel like a fool. I said, don't. You're not a fool. You just haven't been taught.
Yeah.
Now that you know,
Right.
I said, there's the stack of wood over there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a hammer. I'll be back in 30 minutes. Should have all the nails pulled out.
Sure.
And did he?
Yes, and he did it the way I showed him, but I didn't tell him that. I said, you can do it my way, or you can do it your way.
Right. We know
Yeah.
which way we know what's going to happen when you keep doing your way.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to open a school, Madison, up in Oceanside, Vista School District, and until asked me to sign on, there were 20 boys in the group. We had 2 groups. We separated the boys into 2 groups, an A group and a B group, because there's just too many. And we had them for 3 months. And it was myself, Rich, and then Hector as well. And we saw the development of these children from the very beginning, when most of them came in with their hoods over their heads. They didn't want to talk, most of them, or if they did want to talk, they want to talk about everything but their feelings.
Right.
Very disruptive. These were the children that needed the most, guidance.
Right.
And some of the stories I heard were exactly what you're talking about, as far as no parents incarcerated, what have you.
Yeah.
And slowly over time, as sort of the trust built in the circle, and the boys knew that when they were on the playground, the other boys wouldn't call them out on what was discussed in the circle. And it was a circle of trust.
Cool.
And slowly but surely, the hoods came back.
Yeah.
They started talking. And we sat with the counselor, one of the counselors, and the assistant principal afterwards, and he went through sort of the checklist of feedback from the teachers that these kids were, their classes.
Sure.
And across the board, fewer issues, less talking, all those types of things that you're talking about. And that was only in 3 months.
3 months,
So
yeah.
I'm excited to see what happens next year when we have them for a full 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And we have some of those kids who were in 7th grade, who are now going to be in 8th grade, and hopefully they're sort of leading the pack. You're going to get those 8th graders at your high school, where you do your program. And I think, hopefully you'll get kids who are already sort of ready to go. I primed them for you.
Thank
And
you.
so now you'll get them, and now you can put your finishing touches on them, because you're way better at this than I am.
Well, the interesting thing too, the focus for the program is really to get to the sweet spot with these boys, which is ages 12 and 13.
Right.
So middle school.
When they're making choices about what kind of man they're going to be. That's
Right.
Big
That's,
deal.
Statistically, that's when they have their first experimentations with smoking, drinking. When they make
Drugs.
decisions at that
Right.
time. Drugs.
Right.
But we get involved in the high schools and the middle schools.
Yeah.
Just because I just got involved in a high school initially, and also with my son, who's now 30 years old, we had our struggles.
Sure.
So I have a lot of empathy for those boys, so I want to be there as well. But ideally, again, working with them at the younger age, at that 12 and 13, is really the best place to start with them. And a lot of what really got me excited about this program was just seeing what's going on with boys in general.
Mhm.
Boys are, it's the shooters of the of these white boys.
Right.
Boys are 5 times more likely to be successful at committing suicide than girls are.
Wow.
Girls will talk about it more than boys will, but boys are 5 times more
So they're-
likely to successfully do it.
Wow.
Somebody threw a statistic that in America, 45,000 people take their own life each year. 90% of those are men.
Wow.
Wow.
So there's something going on.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that the reason is that they haven't had good, healthy male role models,
Right.
and the definition of what it means to be a man now
Sure.
is different from what a lot of them had been taught, or what their parents or grandparents grew up with in the 50s
course.
and 60s and that type of thing.
Boy, men don't cry.
Yeah.
Suck
Well,
it
of
up.
course not.
Men
It-
have no fear.
Exactly, and as I was just going to say, traditionally men don't talk about their feelings, right? They bottle them up
Yep.
and they get them out, and it comes out at
out.
some point. It's
Sure.
not if it's not talked about, it's acted out.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now through I'm a member of a men's group, and this is like a men's group for boys, and it's teaching them it's okay to talk about your feelings. And guess what? When you do talk about your feelings, it sort of self-reinforces, because now they start feeling better that they had someone who trusted them,
Absolutely.
who's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
who will be there for them.
Yep.
Rich and I went to the graduation for the 8th graders, and they know, okay, these guys are here. They're not abandoning me.
Right.
I have someone I can talk to. I feel safe. I'm going to share, and they feel better. I would say a vicious cycle, but it's a good vicious cycle
Right.
of development.
Yeah.
And then the group aspect of it works both ways for the boys and the men. So if you go on vacation or have to work for the next 2 or 3 months, somebody else is going to step in your shoes, and then when you come back, the group will still be going. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What are you getting out of doing this?
I love seeing the boys develop, and I love seeing what can happen with these boys. And I think about sort of where they came from and where they're going to go. It makes me feel better about the future. I have 2 boys. They're 16 and 17, and it actually helps me a little bit be a better parent because it reminds me that I should talk less and listen more, ask more
Listen,
questions,
listen more. That's
listen
right.
more, and 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Right.
I tend to reverse that with my boys, telling them what to do, and then when I'm in the group, and it's the other way around, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, this is how it's supposed to be. I forgot. Rich sometimes has to remind me about that, so it's definitely good. So that's one of the programs is the schools, but you have other programs as well that helps with boys, the retreats and so forth. So talk about that.
Well, going back to where the program originated 20 years ago, the model for that was much like a local men's group. But about 9 years ago, Craig, is when you first got into the schools. Because the program is now in how many
40 schools.
40 schools,
Wow.
doing 60 sessions a week.
And you have schools on waiting lists. I mean, you
Oh,
have
yes.
schools ready to go. We need more mentors. So
Exactly. But putting the program in the schools made a big difference, and so now we've got schools asking us to come in, trying to get the mentors lined up, and that's where I think we're really effective. But besides doing it in school, then we have 5 or 6 times a year we'll have a camp. We have our Legacy Ranch,
Venture Mountain Weekend.
the Adventure Mountain Weekend, which is up by Mount Palomar.
Excellent.
And that's a very impactful weekend for the
Sure,
boys. That's
sure.
where that's where it's it's a big adventure. We used to say in the men's group, they take the longest trip, the 18 inches from head to the heart. And
Yeah.
and so we try not to tell them, because that could scare the heck out of them. Going, we're going to talk about emotions all weekend. We're going to talk about being real.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the scariest thing for men is to talk about emotions. That's what we used to fear on the weekend. It's not climbing a big tree or anything. It's talking about your emotions. It scares the heck out of men.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Yeah, but this shows the boys it's okay to do it.
Absolutely.
And I've heard stories of, I need to go to one. I haven't gone yet, but I've heard some amazing stories that come out of that. Those weekends are fantastic. So, so like we said, there are schools that want boys to men. I know you're working on some in Carlsbad and throughout all of North County, all over San Diego County. So they need mentors. And so if you're, is it safe for me to say if you're interested?
Please, absolutely. What's required for a mentor, just to make this clear, because mentorship, for me, scared me in the beginning, because I thought I'm not good enough to be a mentor. My life isn't so stellar or perfect that I can be a mentor.
Right.
What I found out was, no, it was me being genuine and authentic about how flawed my life has been, and being able to get over obstacles and continue on with life was what the real value was in communicating with these boys. Being a mentor is actually pretty easy. And I always tease about this too. 80% of it is the success, which means being vulnerable, which means exposing that maybe you're flawed, which none of us actually are. It's just,
Right.
That's a misnomer.
Yeah,
There
right.
are no flaws. But to be able to demonstrate to these boys a lot of the challenges we had, and to be honest with them, and then give them a voice to be able to say what's going on with them. But for mentors, it's not there to impress them with, here's all my achievements, accomplishments, here's my
boys
trophies.
do not want perfect mentors.
No.
They want mentors like them that are
Absolutely.
struggling. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because then they'll realize that we all have our journey. We all have our challenges.
Yeah. Sure.
And they just want to hear that they're not the only one doing it.
Right.
I have to share this one story with you with two boys. This is some of the magic that happens in some of the circles. There's a boy in a circle, came there about 3 times, didn't say anything.
Okay.
Comes into a circle, and we find out he admits that, Bonnie wants to get something off his chest. His dad is going to prison for 10 years, will be deported, he'll probably never see him again.
Oh my goodness.
Sitting right next to him, right after he tells his story and lays his heart out there, and everybody's very connected with him. The kid right next to him is frustrated because he can't see his dad, who is in prison. Hasn't been able to see him for 6 months.
Oh wow.
Well, they just happen to sit right next to each other.
Right.
And now it was that whole thing about, well, if the first one felt really bad that I'm the only kid in school who's got a dad in prison, well, guess what? The other one's sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
And now you can support each other. And it's that kind of stuff that comes up. It's creating that safety so they can tell honest stories about themselves. And that's what a mentor does. It just comes into that circle to be honest about himself and what some of his struggles have been. For mentors, it's an hour a week, or 2 hours a week in a school. We try to match it up with, so it's a locale that works for them. I've been focusing a lot in North County, so opening up schools in Vista and in Encinitas. 3 more new schools coming up here, including La Costa Canyon in September. But Rancho Buena Vista High School, Madison, Roosevelt, middle schools. So we're continually adding schools, but at the same time looking for mentors who are willing to give up an hour. And I'll tell you, it's not being a mentor. I can tell you, it's not giving up an hour. It's because what I get out of it as a mentor.
Oh, sure.
It's one of the most invigorating hours I get.
Absolutely.
It's the most gratifying work I've ever done.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. When I go, I look forward to it. And we always start with the group. Your name, how you're feeling right now, and and the mentors do it too. I think most of the time I said I woke up feeling grateful to be with you guys today, and I truly was. Every time I left, I was grateful that I had the opportunity to at least partially impact these boys' lives. So speaking of live, we are live, and we have some comments here. Dennis Feathers Graham said, "We love you, Attila. Thank you all for talking about this." And Susan Allman Pesh.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct.
Yeah, I know Susan. Sue, thanks for watching us today. We appreciate you sitting in with us.
Thumbs up. And then Tony Silva is a friend of mine. Thank you, Tony, for giving the thumbs ups as well. So we really appreciate that. So if someone does want to become a mentor, wants to learn more about the the 100 Wave Challenge. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So we're a nonprofit organization, of course, and we're supported by people's donations. One of the key fundraisers that we have is the 100 Wave Challenge, which actually got my attention to this program 9 years ago. The first time I took this as, I can do 100 waves in a day. And that got my attention. And actually, it was something that Craig did that really got my attention. So I went there just to do the 100 Wave Challenge and support the program.
Right.
And that'll be coming up again October 7th.
7th, yeah.
At Mission Beach.
Go to 100wave.org.
100wave.org to support that. So whether you surf or you don't, or if you're even just a surf angel, then we'll take the support. But what got my attention was a tagline by Frederick Douglass that Craig had put up on the website. It says that it's easier to build strong children than it is to fix broken men.
Oh, yeah.
I'd already been involved with a men's group, but I'm going, wow, if I could get involved in a program that would let these kids get something earlier that I didn't get until I was in my 50s,
Right.
I want to be a part of that.
Right.
And that's what got me started in the first place.
Excellent.
Yeah. So 100 Wave Challenge coming up in October.
Right.
You can learn more about Boys to Men at
boystomen.org.
Boystomen.org, yeah.
spelled out.
Yeah, BOYSTOMEN.org.
Yeah. If you do boys and the number 2 men, you may get the
You're
rock. You may get the
rock.
group.
You're going to get the rock.
Right. Let's get the right one. And what I didn't say when Rod was on it earlier as well is that I'm going to have links to their website, to Rod's website, on the Real Talk Carlsbad Facebook page over the next couple of days. So you can get more information just link right there from the Real Talk Carlsbad page. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for getting me involved in the organization.
For bringing us on, Brian.
And I really appreciate it. So again, Brian DeVore with Pacific Sotheby's International Realty, the DeVore Realty Group, 760-908-3838. We're very grateful that you joined us this morning. Now you can go put on your hats and go down to the racetrack if that's what you're going to be doing today. Meanwhile, I'm going to find another way to get home than the 5 freeway, I think. Maybe I'll take the 15 or some other circuitous route.
Or Uber.
Or Uber. I mean, well, at least I can sit and do work in the car, right? Then I have to get my car, though. Again, Brian DeVore, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next month on the next edition of Real Talk Carlsbad.